On a chilly evening in December 2006, a crime shocked the peaceful town of Boulder, Colorado. The bright, cheerful spirit of the holiday season was quickly dimmed when the news broke. A young girl named JonBenét Ramsey was found dead in her home. Her family was well known in the community, and the murder of such a bright, talented child stirred intense emotions among residents. JonBenét was only 6 years old, a child beauty queen known for her sparkling personality and lovely smile. Her parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, were devastated by this horrific event. They reported her missing early on the morning of December 26th, but by the end of the day, tragedy struck. Law enforcement soon discovered her lifeless body in the basement of their own home. The investigation that followed would become one of the most talked about murder cases in American history. The police started their work quickly, gathering evidence and interviewing the family and neighbors. Many people suspected that someone close to JonBenét may have been involved. The case attracted considerable media attention, fueling a frenzy of excitement as more details came to light. As days turned into weeks, the pressure mounted on Boulder law enforcement to find the truth behind the sad event. Despite their efforts, the investigation faced numerous challenges. Many potential witnesses offered conflicting statements, and key evidence seemed mysteriously absent. The legal system, aware of the case's high profile, became deeply involved. It was crucial for the authorities to handle the investigation properly, to ensure justice for JonBenét and her family, and the town watched closely as events unfolded. The trial and its implications would forever change the community and ignite conversations about safety, justice, and loss. As the sun rose over Boulder, Colorado, a feeling of uncertainty hung in the air. The investigation into JonBenét Ramsey's death had begun, but law enforcement faced an uphill battle. The police arrived at the Ramsey home shortly after JonBenét was reported missing. They opened the door to a house filled with fear and sorrow. John and Patsy Ramsey were devastated, looking for answers that seemed to slip away like sand. Officers started their work by examining the living room, where the family had gathered. They collected fingerprints and searched for clues, but everything felt heavy with sadness. Meanwhile, the community was in shock. Families looked at one another in disbelief, wondering how such a tragedy could happen so close to home. The media arrived quickly, their cameras flashing, eager for every detail. Reporters camped outside the Ramsey home, asking the family questions, adding to their grief. The first big challenge for the police was organizing the scene. The house was filled with people, friends, and relatives who came to offer support. Instead of helping, their presence filled the home with more confusion. Officers asked everyone to leave, trying to isolate the scene to gather better evidence. The atmosphere was tense, with emotions running high. The police interviewed the Ramsey family and close friends. Initially, they found everyone cooperative. However, doubt began creeping in. As details emerged about JonBenét's life and her family, police officers started to suspect that someone close might be involved. Rumors began to swirl, and soon whispers of possible family conflict buzzed around the small town. While this was happening, the press was relentless. They published stories filled with speculation about who could be guilty. Some reporters suggested the parents knew more than they were letting on, while others focused on strangers in the area. The simple act of gathering information turned into a race against time. The police strived to remain focused, but the noise outside put additional pressure on their investigation. Days passed with no breakthroughs, and soon self-doubt began to bubble within the law enforcement team. Were they missing vital evidence? Were they focusing too much on the wrong suspects? Each new day brought whispers of frustration along with the wish for justice for JonBenét. As the officers followed leads, something unexpected occurred. A friend of the Ramseys had been the last person to see JonBenét alive on Christmas night. This individual suddenly became a person of interest, turning the investigation in a new direction and sparking fresh discussions among detectives. Investigators were eager to dig deeper into this latest lead, but were careful not to jump to conclusions as they noted the thin line between suspicion and certainty. The mood grew tense as the police sifted through each possibility. They attempted to piece together JonBenét's final hours, hoping for any clarity amid the swirling mess of emotions and uncertainties. With each question asked and each piece of evidence gathered, the detectives found themselves grappling with their own worries about solving a case that had already captured a nation's attention. The clock was ticking, and all they wanted was to uncover the truth for JonBenét and her parents. Would they be able to overcome the stumbling blocks that lay ahead in their quest for justice? Each twist and turn brought new layers to the mystery, and the pursuit for answers continued to weigh heavily on their hearts. As the investigation into JonBenét Ramsey's death continued, small rays of hope began to shine through the dark clouds of uncertainty. While the pressure on law enforcement grew intense, every little piece of information felt like a precious treasure. Detectives had begun to sift through days' worth of clues and evidence, searching for anything that could lead to a breakthrough. With each discovery, the team felt a little more confident, as if they were inching closer to the truth. In the early days, the police worked tirelessly to analyze the evidence they had collected from the Ramsey home. One important clue emerged. A strange note was found in the house. It contained a ransom demand for JonBenét's safe return. This strange letter became the topic of heated discussions among the investigators. Could this note lead them to a suspect? The police believed it might, and they turned their attention to understanding its meaning and origin. They worked closely with handwriting experts who could compare the letter to the writing of potential suspects. Their analysis brought a renewed sense of purpose. Meanwhile, investigative journalists flocked to Boulder, captivated by the tragic story. The media coverage surrounding the case was both vast and intense. Reporters went knocking on doors, attempting to gather any new information or insights. Though their work spread awareness of JonBenét's story, it also influenced how people viewed the Ramseys. Some were supportive, while others began to question the family's role in her death. The constant camera flashes and tapping of keyboards flooded into their lives, putting immense pressure on both the family and law enforcement to uncover the truth. However, amidst the confusion, one key detail stood out. A local woman, who lived near the Ramseys, remembered seeing a suspicious figure lurking outside on the night of JonBenét's disappearance. Her sighting had not initially received much attention, but as detectives reviewed the timeline, they realized this clue could open an important door in the case. They quickly reached out to her for more details, creating a glimmer of hope that a breakthrough was within grasp. Simultaneously, law enforcement targeted their efforts on gathering more insights into people connected to the case. They explored employee records from the Ramsey's business and questioned coworkers and local acquaintances. Each lead, no matter how small, mattered. Police felt the weight of their responsibility to JonBenét and her grieving parents, driving them to pursue a solid case that would deliver justice. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, tensions began to rise not just in the investigators but also in the community. Some residents expressed belief in the Ramseys' innocence, while others called for answers and demanded justice. The emotional pressure was palpable as the media churned out daily stories, constantly speculating who might be guilty. With public scrutiny magnifying on the police's every move, the investigative team grew increasingly determined. Confidence was slowly building within the law enforcement team. With positive developments emerging, they felt empowered, even with mounting external pressure. Each small win, each potential lead, made them feel more capable of unlocking the mystery. Successful investigations often require patience and meticulous attention to detail, and the detectives were beginning to grasp that every clue, no matter how minor, was a stepping stone towards the truth. As they continued to push forward, the belief that they could solve JonBenét's tragic case grew stronger, giving them the drive to overcome the challenges still ahead. As the trial of the Ramsey family unfolded, the atmosphere in the courtroom buzzed with tension. It was the moment everyone had been waiting for, where emotions ran high and testimonies could sway the jury's decision. The courtroom was filled to capacity, a mix of journalists, spectators, and, of course, those directly affected by the tragedy. All gazes were firmly fixed on the judge, attorneys, and witnesses, ready to experience the drama that lay ahead. The prosecution began boldly, determined to prove that JonBenét's death was a direct result of foul play within her own home. They presented evidence piece by piece, showing photographs of the items collected from the crime scene and ultimately sharing the heart-wrenching details about JonBenét's final moments. Their goal was to paint a clear picture for the jury that a loving family could possibly harbor hidden turmoil, unbeknownst to the outside world. As the trial progressed, several witnesses were called to testify. A close friend of the Ramsey family took the stand, recounting joyful memories of JonBenét and her engaging personality. However, it was this same witness who brought uncertainty and tension to the courtroom when questioned about the family's activities on that fateful night. A defensive tone crept into the friend's voice, leading to a clash of emotions in the room. Such moments transformed the courtroom into a high-stakes drama, each word measuring the weight of loss versus loyalty. But the defense team was ready for this challenge. They knew that they needed to create doubt in the jurors' minds. After all, reasonable doubt was their strongest ally. The defense worked tirelessly to demonstrate that not all the evidence was straightforward and that their clients, John and Patsy Ramsey, were grieving parents, not criminals. They also raised questions about the handling of evidence from the very beginning, suggesting that key items might have been contaminated. As the defense called their own witnesses, the courtroom echoed with emotional narratives. A prominent expert in child psychology spoke about how parents react differently under extreme stress, suggesting that John and Patsy's responses could be misunderstood. This sparked a discussion about grief, family dynamics, and societal expectations, leading to an emotional moment when John Ramsey broke down on the stand. His raw pain showed the jury that he was a father devastated by the loss of his daughter, an image that stood in stark contrast to the accusations surrounding him. The prosecution fired back with cross-examinations that aimed to challenge and shake the credibility of each defense witness. They dissected statements, exposing contradictions and using each error to strengthen their own case. Tensions peaked when the prosecuting attorney directly questioned the parents, raising uncomfortable points about parental responsibility and whether they truly did everything to protect JonBenét. The emotional waves shifted back and forth, capturing the hearts of those present. Outside the courtroom, the media swarmed, reporting every detail and broadcasting every courtroom drama live. The public closely followed the unfolding events, influencing how each juror perceived the case. As the most intense moments clashed, the courtroom felt electric. Tension and emotions simmered as they interacted, aware that the next bit of testimony could change everything. With each passing day of the trial, hope and despair mingled in a cocktail of uncertainty, creating a gripping and unforgettable scene on the path to finding justice for JonBenét. Every word spoken, each argument exchanged, slowly brought both sides one step closer to unraveling the frightening mystery that had cast a shadow over Boulder and beyond. As the trial unfolded, tension in the courtroom reached a boiling point. The prosecution was gearing up to present what they believed would be their most powerful weapon, a key witness who could potentially turn the tide in this tightly contested trial. The audience buzzed with anticipation, sensing that this moment could be crucial in revealing the truth about JonBenét's death. The courtroom fell silent as the witness entered. A former neighbor of the Ramseys, she had witnessed events surrounding the investigation closely. With a steady voice and a calm demeanor, she took the stand, giving the impression of someone who had weighed her recollections carefully. The prosecutor wasted no time. He asked her detailed questions about her experiences and observations the night JonBenét was reported missing. With each reply, the woman painted a vivid snapshot of that tragic night. She described seeing lights in the Ramsey home late and odd sounds coming from the backyard, which created a sense of foreboding. As she spoke, a hush fell in the room. Her words were charged with emotion and carried heavy implications. The image of parents tucked away upstairs, unaware of the lurking danger, sent ripples through the audience. The jurors listened intently, some nodding, while others exchanged worried glances. The prosecution continued to lay down a vivid timeline, leaving no gaps in the story. They suggested that the Ramsey family had been hiding something. The audience felt the mounting tension as they wondered how this testimony could change everything. As the witness discussed unusual behavior she observed in the aftermath of the crime, her tone shifted slightly, revealing darker intentions hidden beneath her words. The prosecutor seized the moment, leaning in with pointed questions that targeted the inconsistencies in the Ramseys' own accounts as compared to her testimony. Surrounding him were papers filled with notes, highlighted points, and pictures of the previous scene, all designed to showcase connections that the defense struggled to counteract. Then came the moment that marked a turning point in the trial. The prosecutor asked the neighbor about a detail she had not previously mentioned during investigations. She had glimpsed someone familiar walking near the Ramsey home just before JonBenét was reported missing. The emotional impact of this revelation caused murmurs to sweep across the room. Faces turned from the witness back to the parents, shifting the courtroom energy significantly. Could the defense team withstand such a bombshell? After a brief pause, the atmosphere thick with tension, the defense rose to counteract the damning statements. They hastily called the witness's credibility into question. Their approach was strategic, attempting to shake her confidence. They asked her about her feelings toward the Ramsey family. Did she truly hold any animosity that could impact what she had seen? Doubt cast shadows as she grappled with her memory while under pressure. Nevertheless, the damage had been done. Some jurors were left reconsidering everything they had believed. Within the confines of the courtroom, emotions were raw and frustrations simmered. People shifted in their seats, feeling the strain between justice and innocence. The stakes were clear, intensifying as all eyes remained fixed on the proceedings. Every remark carried a weight that could signify something momentous for JonBenét, her family, and the entire community in Boulder. This moment, burdened by anticipation and uncertainty, hung in the air. The waning daylight spilled through the windows, casting long shadows as silence embraced the room. Those present braced themselves for what was to come next, aware that every small twist and reveal would alter the course of the trial and the search for justice that had spanned countless days. In the courtroom, the heart of the case beat loudly, pounding in rhythm with the emotions of all who were invested in uncovering the forsaken truth behind JonBenét's tragic fate. As the trial drew to a close, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. All eyes turned to the defense team as they prepared to deliver their closing arguments. The atmosphere felt charged, and the stakes were high for everyone involved. The defense knew that they needed to dismantle the prosecution story effectively and create a compelling case of their own, one that would turn the jurors away from guilt and back toward the innocence of their clients, John and Patsy Ramsey. The lead defense attorney stood tall, exuding confidence as he addressed the jury. He began by reminding them of the core principle of American law, the presumption of innocence. He urged them to remember that the burden of proof lay with the prosecution, and they had not met that threshold. Emphasizing this, he highlighted the considerable doubts raised throughout the trial, pointing to inconsistencies in witness testimonies and the absence of concrete evidence linking the Ramseys to JonBenét's death. With passion in his voice, the attorney asked, "Who truly mourns the loss of JonBenét?" He painted a picture of a loving family ripped apart by tragedy, insisting that they had only suffered the heartbreaking loss of their daughter, not the guilt of a crime. As he spoke, the defense attempted to pull at the heartstrings of the jurors, reminding them of the innocent child who had become the face of loss in their community. The courtroom remained hushed, disrupted only by the soft shuffling of anxious jurors. To deepen their argument, they pointed out key mistakes made during the investigation. The attorney meticulously recounted how evidence had been mishandled and how the media frenzy clouded judgment. He suggested that as the police pursued the drama surrounding the case, valuable details slipped through their fingers. The effectiveness of the defense lay not solely in the arguments themselves but in the emotions behind them, sowing seeds of doubt in the jurors' minds. In the final moments, the defense team called upon a familiar figure, the neighbor who had testified earlier. They wanted to reinforce that her memory could not be wholly trusted given the emotional chaos surrounding the Ramseys' home during that time. This reminder resonated with the jurors, urging them to question the reliability of witnesses whose emotions could chip away at the truth. With emotions running high, the defense wrapped up its arguments, leaving the jurors with a powerful impression. As both teams prepared to exit, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on everyone in the room. The moment of deliberation approached, thick with uncertainty and anxiety. The jurors were keenly aware that their decision would not only determine the fate of the Ramseys, but also impact a town yearning for closure. As they shuffled into the deliberation room, reflections stirred. The jury members knew that this case transcended the courtroom. It affected mothers, fathers, friends, and neighbors of JonBenét. They felt the weight of navigating unbearable emotions that lingered in the hearts of her loved ones. Every member thought about their own families and the fragile nature of happiness and safety. Outside the courtroom, spectators exchanged worried glances, replaying the trial's twists and turns in their minds. The impact of the trial echoed among those in Boulder, causing many to wonder how such a tragedy could shake their calm, friendly town. For John and Patsy, the devastation felt endless, and each moment stretched as they awaited the jury's decision, unsure of what the future held. As deliberation began, feelings of hope and despair swirled together, casting a shadow unseen across the faces of the community. The possibility of finding justice for JonBenét danced ever so close, but so remained uncertainties within everyone's hearts. What would the jury decide, and how would it change the lives of those affected by this tragic story? In that crucial moment, the outcome felt forever intertwined with the lives of countless people, pouring out a call for understanding, and ultimately, for healing. When the verdict was finally announced, a heavy silence filled the courtroom. The jury found John and Patsy Ramsey not guilty of any wrongdoing in the tragic death of their beloved daughter, JonBenét. Reactions swirled through the room, a mix of disbelief, relief, and sorrow enveloping everyone present. The Ramseys sat frozen for what felt like an eternity before the gravity of what had just happened settled in. Vulnerabilities spilled out of their hearts, desperately seeking solace after enduring years of painful scrutiny. John and Patsy embraced tightly, tears streaming down their faces, expressing both their relief and lingering sadness for JonBenét. They understood that this verdict did not bring their daughter back, nor could it erase the nightmare they had lived through. But in that moment, a small flicker of hope ignited within them. They now felt free from the heavy chains of accusation and frustration, ready to embark on a journey of healing amidst the torment they had faced. The public reaction was divisive. Some people echoed relief alongside the Ramseys, believing that justice had prevailed, while others were enraged, feeling that real justice had not been achieved due to unresolved questions surrounding JonBenét's case. Letters to the editor in local papers expressed fury about the outcome, while social media exploded with conversations on the implications the trial would have on safety and trust within families and communities. A sense of unrest raised concerns over the handling of the investigation and open discussions about whether authorities could have done things differently. The media, too, weighed heavily on the balance of public opinion. Some outlets painted a sympathetic picture of the Ramseys, while others stuck to sensational stories that labeled them as mere suspects. Reporters flocked to Boulder, searching for insights or any clues that hinted at renewed leads. Meanwhile, in the wake of the high-profile trial, journalists and programs began analyzing the weaknesses and strengths of the investigation and court process. For better or worse, JonBenét's story remained etched in societal consciousness. For law enforcement, the case prompted deep introspection. Many officers who had poured their hearts into the investigation were left with lingering doubts, frustrated by the knowledge that an innocent child's life had been overwhelmingly affected by how they approached the case. Officers openly discussed the need for better training in handling high-stakes emotional cases and reflected on biases and pressure that could alter one's judgment. Within the circle of policing, this case initiated an examination of protocol, investigative tactics, and how they interact with public perception in the age of media frenzy. As time began to move forward, the Ramseys faced the long road of restoration and advocacy. They channeled their grief into creating a foundation aimed at promoting child safety and awareness. They knew they had become a recognizable face in a painful narrative, but through their efforts, they hoped to honor JonBenét's memory and deliver a message to other parents. Do not shy away from speaking out for your child and never underestimate the power of love. Gradually, the community found ways to come together, aiming to create safe spaces for families to bond and trust. Support groups emerged and heartfelt discussions surged within the heartfelt context of loss. Conversations centered not only around protection but also about rebuilding confidence within families. Distrust had taken root during the trial's shadow, and rebuilding that faith was a communal priority. Amid troubling experiences, individuals recognized their shared humanity. They reflected on the need for compassion, love, and support. The noble mission for justice bloomed even in darkness, reminding many that outreach can arise from hardship. As time softened the raw emotions, the community hoped to reshape the narrative by honoring JonBenét's life, while the legal system and families sought to ensure better awareness of the delicate nuances that define familial relationships and accountability. The ripple effects of this haunting case permeated deep, engaging countless people. For everyone touched by JonBenét's story, a legacy of action and reflection began, pushing toward healing and nailing down hope, ensuring that she would not be forgotten amid the pain of loss. While it would never be easy and answers might remain elusive, the steps forward began the healing process in a fractured community, where compassion became the foundation for lasting change. In the aftermath of the trial, the lives of everyone involved began to change dramatically, shaped by the powerful forces of fear, grief, and in some cases, relief. John and Patsy Ramsey emerged from the courtroom as survivors of a nightmare, but the scars of their experience ran deep. Although they were acquitted of any charges related to JonBenét's death, society's gaze never fully lifted. Accusations lingered even after the trial concluded, and the media fixation continued to haunt them. With their every move scrutinized, they faced a lengthy journey of healing, both as individuals and as a family. The couple made efforts to reclaim a sense of normalcy. They chose to limit their public appearances, hoping to find peace within the privacy of their home. While their lives in Boulder would never be the same, they sought support through community groups and counseling focused on grieving families. This nurturing environment became vital for them to process their unimaginable loss and slowly rebuild trust with each other and their loved ones. Told by their experiences, John and Patsy became vocal about child safety, advocating for better protection measures and being open about their painful experiences. They established a charity dedicated to helping families of missing children, channeling their pain towards creating a collective voice for change. This journey became purposeful, as they stepped out of tragedy and into a role of awareness and advocacy. The transformation from victims of accusations to advocates became not just a mission but also a source of empowerment that resonated strongly within them. For other families affected by the tragedy, especially those of the children who had attended the same beauty pageants as JonBenét, ripples moved through their lives too. Many mothers and fathers worried for their children's safety, feeling more exposed to the realities of life's dangers. They began talking openly about safety measures and the importance of community vigilance. Neighborhood watch programs sprang to life, rekindling an interest in collective responsibility to help ensure children's safety. From the perspective of law enforcement, the ramifications of the case reshaped practices within the Boulder Police Department and beyond. Officers and detectives possessed a newfound dedication to scrutinizing procedures and protocols followed in sensitive investigations. They conducted reflection sessions that shared insights and emotional experiences, fostering dialogue about shortcomings. The pursuit of justice was no longer just about factual evidence, but also linked to sensitive handling of the working dynamic with families and maintaining community trust. Members of the jury faced their own challenges in grappling with a verdict that would follow them throughout their lives. Though the verdict was not guilty, it raised deep reflection on the efficacy of the legal system. Many jurors pondered their responsibility in preventing further tragedy while understanding how high the stakes were. Conversations around emotional health emerged as essential considerations, ensuring jurors didn't carry the burden alone. What if? Scenarios played repeatedly in their minds, urging them to process the broader implications of their decision, which shaped the delicate balance between justice and compassion. The media's role during the trial had tactical consequences. Striving for ratings and coverage, reporters continued to dissect the story. Some journalists reconsidered their approaches, seeking fresh means of highlighting sensitive subjects responsibly. The trial had raised questions surrounding the ethics of reporting, becoming critical content within journalistic discussions across the nation. This shift resulted in stronger perspectives on what it meant to prioritize humans over sensationalism, promoting empathy over thirst for exclusive stories and headlines. In this complicated tapestry that emerged from JonBenét's tragic story, profound lessons settled in for everyone involved. Though the pain remained fresh, there was a pressing thirst for understanding, to holistically grasp what had transpired. From the heartbreaking realities of grief to the responsibilities carried by those in service and advocacy. Through open discussions and reflective conversations, if there was anything to absorb from the chaos that ensued, It was the power of people coming together to protect and support one another. The story of JonBenét Ramsey became woven into larger conversations about family, safety, and justice. Each member of the community, previously bonded by tragedy, began forging a path toward awareness and change. Therein lay the quiet determination that stemmed from sorrow, transforming heartbreak into a collective commitment to ensure that a tragedy like this would not darken their doorstep again. In the years following the trial of John and Patsy Ramsey, the ramifications of JonBenét's tragic death and the subsequent legal proceedings echoed through Boulder and beyond. For the Ramseys, though they would never fully escape the shadows of their past, life began to reflect a new chapter. Their dedication to child safety initiatives blossomed, allowing them to help other families. They used their heart-wrenching experiences to guide a movement aimed at creating safe environments for children, spreading awareness far and wide. Although the verdict had cleared them of wrongdoing, the social scrutiny remained. The community gradually learned to approach the Ramseys with compassion rather than suspicion. Families in Boulder began hosting gatherings emphasizing connection and support. Through outreach efforts and personal stories shared in various forums, the Ramseys managed to rebuild their relationship with the community. Trust was slowly restored as meaningful conversations took place about parenthood, safety, and the protection of children. The Ramseys even began organizing annual events to honor JonBenét's memory, turning their pain into a legacy that fostered hope for future generations. The trial had broad effects beyond the immediate lives of the Ramseys. In the world of law enforcement, JonBenét's case became a vital point of reference for procedures involving child-related crimes. Authorities throughout the nation closely analyzed the challenges faced in the investigation, promoting discussions around best practices in sensitive cases. Many police departments adopted policies aimed at improving communication and empathy toward the victims' families, fostering a more kind-hearted approach toward those in trauma. Officers engaged in truly understanding what families needed in such bleak situations, going beyond just facts and evidence. The judicial system also faced scrutiny regarding the handling of high-profile cases and the intersection of media involvement with justice. The courtroom narratives during the trial served as critical lessons in establishing more protective measures for families thrusted into the spotlight. Discussions arose regarding guidelines for media reporting on sensitive cases, ensuring that the voices and needs of families were prioritized over sensationalized storytelling. In light of the public discourse inspired by JonBenét's tragic story, advocacy organizations picked up urgency, campaigning for more consistent child protective laws. Legislative efforts emerged, focused on enhancing penalties for child endangerment and creating robust measures to safeguard children in vulnerable situations. Various states initiated discussions on working collaboratively across jurisdictions to locate and address potential risks to children more effectively. Because of this case and those like it, conversations grew louder about the legislative responsibilities surrounding child protection, spurring changes in policies that would echo for years. Further legal repercussions also emerged as civil suits related to the case saw families seeking remedy associated with the investigation experiences. These legal actions pushed the community to take a closer look at how authorities operated and learned from errors made in the case. Issues of accountability became mainstays in conversations among leaders, hinting at future changes needed in procedure to honor the echoes of mistakes made in the past. For those in Boulder who witnessed the unfolding drama, JonBenét's legacy transformed into a pivotal force uniting the community. As time passed, people began to focus less on the tragedy and more on the lessons this heartbreaking event taught them. They rallied around preventative measures that promoted compassion and awareness in their neighborhood, actively working to safeguard children in even the smallest ways. The impact of the trial shifted community priorities toward protecting youth and instilling hope against fear's shadow. As reflections grew deeper, it became clear that JonBenét Ramsey's story was not just about loss. It revealed vulnerabilities, the need for support in darkness, and the power of a community willing to change. The trials and experiences became implementing springs guiding families, police officials, legal authorities, and ordinary citizens toward understanding the need for collective efforts. Together, they began shaping futures brighter than the past, all motivated by JonBenét's legacy, sparked from one heartbreaking tragedy that instigated long-lasting ripples empowering real change.